Okay, we're live. Thanks everybody for joining. This is Ryan Kittleson here with you, doing another streaming session with these characters from the Bill Plimpton short animated film Guard Dog. And today I'm going to be posing them and kind of putting them on a platform, maybe even preparing for 3D printing. So if you guys aren't familiar with the short film, definitely go onto YouTube and search Guard Dog animation and have yourself a good laugh. So yeah, I'm just going to be working away on this. Feel free to ask questions in the chat or anything. Yeah, I'll just be talking about my process, what I do. Uh, Feel free to leave any comments or questions in the chat. So yeah, I'll just go ahead and get started. One thing that I'm trying to figure out what I want to do with this is there's a couple different poses for him. So there's one where he's walking the dog, and of course the dog is like, has this ridiculous expression on his face, and the man is like kind of, just in a walking pose. It's nothing special. And I could do that, or I could do at the end of the film, the guy gets choked out by the leash because the dog gets, carried away. And I think this would be really fun to do as well. It's more work, I guess, to make this rope, and I kind of feel like I want to change it up a little bit and actually have the rope kind of like tying up his body and arms and legs even more, because right now it's just kind of going around his neck and like once around his face, and it could be really fun to have kind of design a more interesting way for that rope to be like tying all around him. So I'm still trying to like figure out which direction I want to go with that, walking or being choked out. Um, Being that this is an homage to Bill Plimpton, probably going the more extreme route is appropriate. And you know what? I'll try it. If it turns out I just don't like it, I can just pick up from the save point and just do a more traditional, straightforward walking pose. One thing I want to do is prepare this for 3D printing as well. So I'm going to make kind of a ground for them to stand on and make sure that they're attached to the ground. So when it prints, it'll be self-supporting. So go ahead and introduce yourselves in the chat. Let us know where you're from, what kind of stuff you're interested in learning about. Just going to make a plane for the action to happen on. Let's see. I think I want to make this plane kind of have just kind of an organic shape to it. Maybe something kind of like this. Supports both the man and the dog. And then what I can do is Z-remesh this so we get something that's maybe a little bit cleaner in topology. We've got our first message here in the chat. We've got Sult13 Gamer. Oh, that's cool. In South Africa, that's great working for a local indie studio developing a few titles. I'm glad it's good to hear. I'm glad to hear that there's some indie video game studio action happening in South Africa. Just going to massage the shape of this platform a little bit. I just keep hitting Z remesh a few times. It really helps smooth out that shape. And now I can give it some dynamic thickness. Oh, hey, what up, Josh T? Great to see you in the chat. We should hang out soon. Oh, Free Lives, I played Broforce. That is a fun game. I haven't played Terra Nil, but yeah, I loved playing Broforce. I played it with my uh 10-year-old nephew, and he thought it was hilarious. All right, let me position this dog so it's kind of like on the platform so it can 3D print because the magic of 3D, where things can just be floating in the air, doesn't necessarily translate to 3D printing, unfortunately. I've got all my interface on separate monitors, so you guys aren't actually seeing. I'm arranging my subtools in my other monitors. So unfortunately, you're just kind of like looking at a blank screen right now. You guys want to see what my interface actually looks like? My custom ZBrush interface. There we go. That's what my full interface looks like. A lot of it's pulled down into the monitor below my main monitor, and then some of it's pulled onto this monitor to the left. Genital jousting. Yeah, I won't be playing that with my nephew. All right, so let's see. Let's see how we can position this dog for maximum hilarity while still being stable for 3D printing. Working on any personal projects today, Josh, or got some freelance cooking? I'd like to think that this would be stable enough as long as I'm like kind of careful with it. I could also do something with the leash so that the leash kind of like touches the ground and then it comes up to the man. That would also help it be more stable. Yeah, my interface is the opposite of minimalist, definitely. Yeah, I hate digging through menus in ZBrush, and so like 99% of everything that I use is either hotkeyed or in my custom UI. But it really sucks when I need to use ZBrush with the vanilla defaults, and I just can't remember where anything is. Uh, so it's the double-edged sword of customizing your UI, right? All right, so for the pose for this guy, I kind of like how his hand is kind of like out to the side like that. Um, I think I might try to have both of his hands kind of doing this stunned pose, um, and then I'll just have the rope kind of wrapping all around him. Yeah, yeah. Every time there's a new version of ZBrush coming out, I find that I have to do this like song and dance of like transferring all my custom settings and interface and everything. And it is a pain. I don't have to reset it from scratch because you can export your custom interface by storing the config or save UI, and then you just load that up in the next install. But it is like a song and dance every time. It's kind of annoying. This question from Vishnal Namani. Hi Ryan, is there a way to delete part of undo history in ZBrush? Sometimes when the history is too big, it's hard to store history. Yeah, yeah. So that's, I don't actually think you can delete part of it. So every once in a while, ZBrush, when it's running low on memory, it will just get rid of all your undo history on a particular subtool. And it's kind of annoying because sometimes you need to go back in that history and it just won't let you. I have not found a way to undo part of undo history. Um, I wonder if you like run back in history and then you go to, I think it's del un, delete undo history, but I think that's going to delete all of it. And then I would lose actually everything. So that's actually a good question. I'm going to do it on an object I don't care about. Let's make a new object here. I'm just going to insert a primitive, oops, and let's see what happens if I just do like, give it some undo history, bring it back to here, edit, del undo history. Yeah, it just deletes all the undo history. So yeah, there's not a way to just undo part of it or delete part of the undo history. It's all or nothing. So that would actually be a really good idea to be able to delete like all but the last 10 or something like that. Hey, GK3D, good to see you again. I remember you from last time. Welcome back. Yeah, yeah, like saving some like specific undo history points, um, and saving those as like untouchable. That's a good idea. So I'm not going to follow this exact pose. Actually, I'm just going to make up my own pose for this because it's a free country. I got to do what I want. That's why. Yeah, I made the dog like a month or two ago, and then I took a break from live streaming for a bit, and then I did the man like 2 and 3 weeks ago. Yeah, that's an interesting observation, Arnold Tote fan. Is that is that Arnold Tote? Is that the guy from Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark, or is that somebody else? So the only place I've ever heard the last name Tote is from that Nazi guy whose face melts at the end of Raiders. Yeah, that is true. Like that, the Pixar smooth and perfect 3D look. Is that what you're talking about? I think, I mean, the Pixar 3D look, it got really popular for a reason. I think it was a really, really fun look, but it is kind of overplayed at this point. All right, I'm gonna stop gabbing and start making this pose. Hey, GQ3D. So, yeah, thanks a lot. Where did I get the idea for the stylized anatomy? Um, it's partly it's it's just working from great reference material, right? Because this character is just so hilarious the way it's drawn. Um, One of the interesting things, I just keep talking about this because it's so interesting, is like the character looks so different in from shot to shot, scene to scene, even frame to frame. And I think this just speaks to Bill Plimpton's genius, where he's unconstrained by staying on model, as they say. And he'll make the anatomy and the proportions be whatever they need to be for maximum hilarity and from moment to moment. So, what I really tried to do was kind of find the anatomical features and proportions that I like the best and kind of mix them all up and just kind of pick and choose like a buffet. Like I really liked the eyebrows from this one, and I really liked the mouth from where is it? There's an image that it's not showing up right now, but there was like I guess it's kind of like this mouth I really liked. Um, Kind of the general head structure I really liked from this one. So, and then parts of the body I picked and choose as well. So, uh, yeah, and then I just tried to create those structures with simplicity and kind of keeping those primitives, um, like making it feel like the structure of the head is built up out of primitives, which it was, and trying to retain that without adding too much like organic messiness. So yeah, it just ends up being a really nice mix of both worlds. Yeah, that's a cool observation, Salt 3D Gamer, about the difference between stylized and realistic. Yeah, and I think there's a really interesting thing also with this idea of hyper realism, where at first glance you're like, oh, that's realistic, but it's accentuated in a way that isn't obvious unless you're looking for it, or it's like even better than real, where it's more, there's like an element of caricature, but it's subtle enough that you don't necessarily notice, but it does subconsciously amp up the appeal of the character. And that can be a really nice thing to go for as well. It's something, actually, I think a lot of beginning character modelers, they get stuck too much on exactly matching their reference, and they don't realize they can kind of push it to be better than the reference. Yeah, Arnold Tote fan, that's true. I think there's some really cool stuff coming out that pushes beyond the Pixar look, the Spider-Verse movies and K-pop Demon Hunters. Um, and I think independent animation has been pushing beyond that Pixar look very effectively and very well for a long time, but it's not been getting into a lot of mainstream feature films until recently. Of course, Josh, definitely doing stuff under NDA, of course. The difference in K-pop Demon Hunters, it is kind of the Pixar look, but they also mixed in a lot of anime stylization, and so it's kind of like 3D anime, and it's just really really well done, I think, and the story is great. All right, finally gonna get working on this leg. I don't mind being distracted by the chat. Yeah, Vishal Namani. The noise, what is it? Offset and rotate. So I'm actually using um, uh, ZBrush 2025, and I think you're referring to features that were added to the noisemaker in 2026. So, but what they should do is, oh yeah, offset, okay, offset, and do you mean an angle? Because in 2026 they did add two or three new ways to manipulate the placement of the noise on the model, and I think you might be referring to that. But basically, you do have to. Um, Sometimes it's hard to actually dial in the noise to where it's visible. You have to like play with that to get a good scale on the noise first. Sorry, I can't be more help than that. Oh, Arnold Tote fan, when graphics have the squared edges, you mean like a low poly, like the PS2 graphic or 3D models where it was like they couldn't have like so many polygons on screen at once, so it was, well, I call it the low poly look, polygonal, blocky. Kind of like having his feet up in the air a little bit, kind of adds to that stunned look. Should have his knees straighter. Arnold Toad fan. You know, some people like that blocky look. It's kind of retro now. Some people are actually intentionally doing it. Oh yeah, Salt 3D game or 13 gamer. Yeah, the gizmo I'm using, it's my custom gizmo. And so it's part of the Ryan's Tools Pro package. Let me put a link in the chat. This is my plugin. And so there's a $5 version for hobbyists, there's a $20 version for pro users, and that comes with some extras like custom brushes, custom materials, et cetera, which also includes my gizmo, which I just like better than the vanilla gizmo. Cakester 2000. You are definitely not the only person that wakes up worrying about that. I do as well, and that is definitely something I'm trying to reckon with myself. Um, I think a lot of people are. Um, for myself, I think about AI, and yeah, it's probably going to wreck the film industry in a lot of ways. Maybe not immediately, but it's going to make it really easy to make movies. Now, I don't know if it's going to be really easy to make good movies, but it's going to be really easy to make a lot of like low effort content. And is that a good thing? I don't know. I think that there's something valuable about making something and putting in the effort to make it all yourself and make all the design decisions. And just because there's AI doesn't mean you can't keep doing that. I don't know if it's going to be economically viable to do that, but I would like to keep making art the old-fashioned way. And I think there's going to be people that see the value in art made the old-fashioned way, and they may be willing to pay a premium for that. Oh, crap. I accidentally split all my polygroups. All right, let me catch up with the comments here. Um, uh, Peter Jackson's King Kong 2005. I actually never played that. Um, Movie was okay. Will I participate in the Zebra Sculpt Off? I have not signed up for that. I got the email invitation, but it would be good. I would like to. Let me look into that. Kickstarter 2000 has lost all motivation because it feels like what's the point in spending so much time developing my skills if a computer can recreate it so quickly? I will respond to that. I think the value of making art and being creative is mostly a benefit to the creator themselves, where it's actually just a really valuable activity to make things, regardless of whether it makes money or anybody else sees it or cares or makes you famous or anything. I think just making things is a really healthy, valuable thing to do. And I think people should do creative things, whether or not it's economically viable. Now, does that mean 3D animation is your thing that you should do? Maybe not. I also do ceramics on the side. I love it, and I'll I doubt I'm ever going to make money at it. Even people who are doing it professionally are maybe barely scraping by. But I just think it's a valuable thing to do. Yeah, I mean, I think AI might eat itself in the sense that people just get bored of it and it's like playing a video game on God mode. It's like, what's the point? Like, why there's no challenge? Why play a video game when you can't die and you have infinite ammo? You walk through walls, like who cares? Arnold Tote fan says the entertainment industry was dead long before AI came onto the scene. Color grading, excessive CG, and wokeness killed it for you. Haven't been to the movie since 2007. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I mean, the entertainment industry is like, yeah, it's its whole beast. I think there's so much content being made by people now, even without AI. It's like, why do we need AI to make content for us? Like, there's already too much to watch. And I think some of it is really good. I think there's a lot of great shows. Even the top 5% or even 1% of shows on streaming services, I don't have enough time in my life to watch all of them. And I think the top 1% is really good content, and there's still too much of it for me to watch. So, why do we need AI? I don't really know. Thanks, Vishnu Lamani. I do. Yeah, Arnold, be a little bit more hopeful, Arnold. Come on. Okay, so yeah, just working on this pose, trying not to get too distracted, trying to think of like maybe do something kind of asymmetrical, but I also like kind of think it kind of adds to the pose if it's kind of symmetrical where he's just kind of this stunned, like tied up appearance. Maybe having him lean back a little bit. Oops, I need to deselect the dog. Have him leaning back like that a little bit, like he's just being yanked. Actually, but if he's leaning back like that, that would mean that the leash would have to be straight, and he's being held up by the leash. But I need to have the leash touching the ground to be more of a support. So maybe that's not going to work. The dog was made symmetrically, and then I posed it after sculpting. Yeah, that's true, Cakester. From a financial perspective, from the studio's point of view, AI makes a lot of sense. If you can make an AI for a tiny fraction of the budget and still make it turn a big profit on it, it's just, but now it's like, I think in 5 years, literally anybody is going to be able to make a movie and direct it like a director, sitting in the director's chair and making creative decisions. And at that point, like, why do we even need studios to be making movies at all? Everybody can just make their own movies and share them with their friends. And sure, most of it's going to be like unwatchable slop, but I think some people have the creative vision to make really cool things, and they might end up making it with AI. And um, if like, making a movie is hard. I'm actually working on a short film right now. It's going to have CG and it's going to have live action, and actually most of the live action has been shot already, and I'm working on the CG portion of it and the editing. And I'm doing it the hard way because I want to do that. It's fun to me to be creative and work on something. Um, but I could see for some people just kind of wanting that AI to just help them jump to the finish line. I think it would be better to do it all by hand, but I mean, we can't hide from the fact that AI is going to happen and it's going to be an appealing option or an alluring option for a lot of people, and that's just the future we're going to live with. I mean, X-Files and Simpsons was great. I do think there's some cool things on Netflix. I think Love, Death, and Robots is great. McBobbles, make some hot garbage, sell it to Netflix and buy a house. I mean, I guess there's worse things you could do with your time. Cakester says AI is good for retopology and UVs. Uh, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't have a problem with somebody using AI for retopology and UVs. I actually like doing retopology and UVs the old-fashioned way. It's meditative for me. Just trying to think what the best pose is for these arms. Actually, kind of like having them facing forward. Now I need to get the rope going around him, and I'm just like hesitating a little bit because I want to have the rope like squishing into his body, and that's going to be a whole thing, which, you know, got to do it because that's what I told myself I'm going to do. But it's just going to be some extra work. Yeah, I mean, I think there's automated UVs, whether or not you call it AI or not. Even like automated UVs nowadays are so easy. It's almost hard to see what AI could do better. Yeah, McBobbles, the AI has to be trained on something. I think what a dystopian world when creative people are making creative content to train the AI on rather than just making the creative content directly. Like it's like what are we doing if that's what creative people are doing with their time instead of like it's insane. It's absolute insanity. There's already some quote unquote AI reachability tools that um, do a decent job, it seems. I'm not worried about whether or not AI can do good retopology. I just don't want people to think it's going to make their solve their creative problems. All right, well, I should start wrapping this guy up in a rope to tie him up and stop distracting myself. I think artificial intelligence is the wrong term. I think a better term is artificial craftiness. I hate it when this tool, like it's now this edge is too close to the other edge and that won't let me continue the stroke. Yeah, there's definitely something satisfying about figuring out your creative, like what you're trying to do creatively and problem solve and solve technical problems and solve creative problems and making something that looks good and works technically. I mean, I just think that's a really satisfying thing to do, and I'll just be sad if humans stop doing that kind of thing. Arnold Toad. Your reason you don't like low poly 3D models is because you can't do wet or slimy textures on them. I love it. Don't ever change. I guess if this guy's being wrapped up and choked out, he's not going to be having a smile on his face, so I'm going to have to like drastically alter the facial expression. And I'll probably do something like this one where he's got his eyes open too. So looks like I've got a lot of work ahead of me. How many years of experience do I have? Well, I started doing 3D and computer graphics in the mid 90s, but I went to school for traditional illustration in 2001 to 2005, and I've started teaching at Full Sail in 2006 to 2012, and then I was doing freelance that whole time and kind of built up enough freelance work to go full-time freelance in 2012, which I've been doing since then. Most of my work is in the fine art world, doing work for fine artists and helping them get their sculpture made with 3D printing and digital sculpture. Oh no, the rope just disconnected. Oh well. One thing I don't like about the insert mesh brushes is they have to be added to an existing mesh, and I wish it would just um, draw it on the existing mesh, but create a new subtool. Nikki Tyler asks, Ryan, do you have your own ZBrush training course? Or maybe you can recommend some on sculpting characters. I absolutely do have my own training courses. If you look on LinkedIn Learning or lynda.com and you just search my name, you'll find my courses. And I've got all kinds of different courses, character modeling, ZBrush essential training, um, hard surface modeling, all the things. It's interesting you say you like low poly because it's more artistic. It creates definitely a technical challenge to create the design that you want to do with the limitation of fewer polygons. Um, but I don't know if I'd say it's more artistic. Yeah, McBobbles, I'm afraid you'll just have to use Google and just search Ryan Kittleson LinkedIn on LinkedInlearning.com or lynda.com. Uh, so it's pretty straightforward. You'll find it. No, as far as I know, you can't save that initial complex curve. I mean, I guess you could save the object, and then what you can do is you can like um, crease an edge loop on it, and then you can convert that edge loop back to a new curve. But I don't usually have a need to do that. Don't have a reference image of how the leash attaches to the dog's collar, so I'll just make something up. I've been playing a little bit with Nomad Sculpt, and I've been pretty impressed with it actually. Oh, wait, I'm supposed to not talk about competing software. Never mind, I said anything. Uh, 13 Gamer says, do you ever use ZModeler to create or edit models like you would in Blender and Maya, like box modeling, poly modeling? I know it's not as powerful, but over the years it's become simpler for me than needing to go to a whole other software just to model something simple real quick. Yes, I do a fair amount of like traditional poly modeling in ZBrush. Um, I think there's still definitely like a lot of times where I prefer going to Maya or a traditional poly modeler package like uh, Cinema 4D, so I don't have to talk about a non-Maxon software. Uh, yeah, yeah, ZBrush has definitely got much better with traditional poly modeling over the years, and I think it's going to get better, better and better. So I just used Ryan's tools insert primitive, and so in the new version of it, you can just put the gizmo anywhere you want, and then when you create a new primitive, it snaps that primitive right to where your gizmo was. So it's super handy for positioning things relative to other things. And now it looks like I'm gonna have to put some work into getting this rope to look nice and taut, kind of all around him. It's kind of sagging in some ways that don't look great. So just another thing to kind of work on here. Yeah, I was playing with Nomad Sculpt the other day, and it does some really cool things, but it's just my workflow is gets slowed down because it's like you have to instead of you being able to use hotkeys and stylus. Well, actually, no, I was able to use a stylus, but not the keyboard, no hotkeys. So it was like, okay, every time I have to do something, I have to like kind of stop and think and do it deliberately and rather than just a quick hotkey, which is fine, but I'm just like so much faster in ZBrush. Salt 13 Gamer. I have done streams elsewhere, just for funsies on YouTube every once in a while, just kind of like just work, just like this, really. But um, or like really like back in the day, like 2012, sometimes I would open up a Google Hangout and just like post a link to my Twitter, Facebook, or whatever, and then people would just jump on and chat with me. But no, I haven't really made it a serious thing other than here with the ZBrush official live stream. Oh yeah, that's a great idea, gamer. Pulling one eye, stretching it open, and then we have to go all around and like make it look like the rope is tightening around his body, so like kind of squishing in the body right where the rope touches. So that's going to be a whole thing to do, which is fun. It's like it's more work, but it's worth it. All right, yeah, I'm gonna make his shocked facial expression, which might end up destroying this like smiley face he's got, but whatever. We'll just do it. I have not tried ZBrush for iPad yet, Josh. I don't own an iPad, and I doubt I will ever own an iPad. Let's see. This tricky thing about this character is it's just dynameshed. I never retopologized him. Um, so it does make kind of adjusting the shapes a little bit more tricky, but just do it. Might just end up having to resculpt a lot of this facial structure for the new pose. No, no, it's all good. Actually, it's a great suggestion, and it is the right thing to do to make a piece better, even if it is more work. So I'm on board. Oh yeah, closed eye with Dynamesh. I just made sure I left enough gap between the eyelids that the Dynamesh wouldn't fill it in. Let's see what this rope looks like if it's kind of more going under the nose rather than in the mouth. Yeah, I kind of like that. I'll just have to adjust how it's sitting on the rest of the head. Maybe I'll make this part come up over the ear instead. Yeah, pooching. Yes, there is this thing in ZBrush called Dynamics, which is a pretty rough, quick and dirty cloth dynamic simulator. Actually, let me save this because I haven't saved it all day, and if I crash, I'm gonna be very sad. Um, okay, yeah, so dynamics, you can simulate things like shrink, expand, inflate, deflate, expand, contract, et cetera, et cetera. I guess I'll just show really quick what that might look like. So we'll set it to inflate. We'll turn off gravity, turn off floor collision, and run simulation. And I see it kind of like inflates a bit. There's some other settings we can allow expand that'll actually make it blow up like that. And you can also turn on collision volumes. So like whatever objects are visible, turn that on. Now let's see, run the simulation. See, but it's like yeah, it takes some finessing to get really good results from it, but it's worth playing with. Josh asks, regarding AI, how do you feel listening to AI music? I couldn't see myself getting into an AI band that you couldn't see live or that speaks from a unique perspective. The same goes for art for me. Yeah, I feel the same way about AI music as I do art. Because it's like, even if it's artistically impressive, like there's definitely some AI art that I've seen, and I'm using the word art very loosely, that if I didn't know it was made by AI, especially if like it was sent back in a time machine to me 5 years ago, before I knew that AI could make things that look like art, I would have thought, wow, this is some of the most impressive imagery I've ever seen. I want to know who made this. I want to know everything about them. I want to follow them and buy their art. But knowing that it's made by AI, it makes me just mostly not care. It just kind of makes me bored by it. Same thing with AI music. There's just something about knowing that something was made by a human and they put effort into it that makes it more valuable. One way I like to think of it is that AI people are also using AI as like a friend because it like empathizes with them. And it's the same thing with like art and music. Like AI doesn't actually produce empathy or art or music. AI makes things that trigger the same neurons in your brain that recognize empathy, art, and music. Yeah, Pooching asks if the simulate, shrink, expand pressure would be useful for my rope. Um, in a perfect world where things worked the way you want them to work, yes. But I feel like manually sculpting those depressions into the clothing from the rope is actually going to be more what I'm going to do. Yeah, Nikki Tyler, totally agreed. I'm going to be breaking the symmetry. Like this nose is going to get pulled up more on one side, for example. Pull that mouth up more on one side too. I think AI kind of reminds me of, you may have met certain people in life who are really fake people, right? They pretend to be your friend, they pretend to be interested in you, but really they're just trying to manipulate you, and they don't actually like feel compassion or empathy towards you. They may be narcissistic or sociopathic or something. And AI might not necessarily have bad intentions, but it doesn't feel for you in the same way that a sociopath doesn't feel for you, but makes you think they do. So it's going to be a little bit tricky to like manage these facial features now that I've dynameshed it all together. Might have been easier if I had like done this in the primitive stage, but actually, you know what? It's probably going to be difficult either way, so I might as well just bite the bullet and do it. Yeah, true artists do deserve love and support. Everybody deserves love and support. I think the tricky thing is that like the vast majority of artists aren't making a living wage from their art anyway. Um, and AI is probably not going to improve that situation. I would like a world where AI makes it so that everybody can have their basic needs met, and then everybody can just make art and not have to worry about whether it's going to pay the bills or not. Trying to see if I can isolate this one eyelid to stretch it up. And I may have made things unnecessarily difficult for myself the way I set this up, but whatever. Ooh, it's not fun. Try this a different way, maybe. Yeah, this might work. This is going to require a lot of massaging, but that's okay. That's what you got to do sometimes. Yeah, this is looking fun. I'll squish this eyebrow down. Oh yeah, the topological move brush. I mean, I definitely could do that. So it doesn't quite always work exactly where you'd want, but yeah, yeah, technically, like it's not supposed to reach across the gap, but it kind of does. 13 Gamer says, "What's your ideal time to spend on a print or sculpt?" I mean, it's just I don't know if I think about the amount of time so much as um, making it look the time it takes to make it look good. It's when it's done when it's done. I mean, obviously there's times when I'm working for a client and there's a deadline, but I think when I have a deadline, I'm pretty good about sort of predicting how long it's going to take and just charging appropriately, and then and then I just don't think about the time other than just making sure it's done on time. And my estimate does tend to be pretty close to reality. Yeah, that's where the real that's when the gloves come off, Nikki Tyler, when you start breaking symmetry, and it's like let go of control, and things just kind of start taking on a life of their own. Signor Limone says, one of my main struggles when I'm working on a personal piece is if I start with a strong pre-planning or not. If I don't, I'll often end up trying to correct things I didn't assess in the beginning. If I plan too much in advance, the piece feels less natural. I'm still searching for a good balance. Yeah, I think that's the never-ending struggle. I think it's good to experiment with both ends on that spectrum and everywhere in between. It's always a good learning experience. I think it's actually really good to find yourself in the position where you're like, oh, I should have planned this out more, but now I just kind of have to wing it and trust yourself that you're going to be able to pull yourself out of whatever hole you dug for yourself by winging it. See, where's the most hilarious place to put the people? Yeah, that'll do for now. Yeah, I think it's more important to just do the project and get it done than it is to have like done the whole arc of the project perfectly. Oh yeah, his tie. His tie could be doing something silly. I'm gonna try to twist his whole head a little bit. Just trying to make that less symmetrical, but now it's like parallel with this one. So now I feel like I gotta make this not parallel with this. Yeah, I can snug it up in his armpit. That'll work. But turn this a little bit so it's not so dorkily symmetrical. Day to day, yeah, it's just a matter of practice. It's I think that's one of the trickier things is like making a character and especially a cartoony character and not giving it more detail than it needs, like keeping really smooth, clean forms. It's almost like uh, modeling a car, right? Cars have like sharp, clean angles and smooth, clean curves. And I feel like that's kind of a useful way to think about modeling cartoon characters is like keep the primitive shapes that went into building it, keep it so that you can kind of see those primitive shapes in the structure of your finished model. It's just practice, really. That's all it takes is just keeping at it, make lots of projects, learn something new every time. All right, I'm gonna start squishing the rope into the clothing and the face. I'll just save it here first. It's always tricky to move on to this next step because it's sort of like mentally locking in what I have so far and being like, am I okay with where the rope is? Because once I start cutting into the body, it's kind of like if I decide to change my mind about the rope, then it's like undoing or redoing a lot of work. So just kind of want to look it over really quick first. I think I do want to do one little thing first is I think it would be kind of funny if the end of the rope was kind of like droopily dangling over his shoulder. I think I'll do that really quick before I move on. I'm trying to remember what was the trick for smoothing this curve because I don't like how it's bunching up around that. Does anybody remember off the top of their head how to smooth that curve? Curve function smooth. Okay, kind of worked. Yeah, I was actually trying to grab it and then press shift, and it was actually just smoothing the resulting mesh, not the curve. Oh well, it's not my problem anymore. Yeah, I like that. That's kind of funny. Just having it like drooping down limp. Hey, Nikki Tyler. Yeah, I was talking about that earlier. I've got four monitors, and so you're only seeing my main monitor, and then I've got the UI stretched out onto three other monitors on my reference in my fourth monitor. Yeah, I do some touching of panels. I'll show you guys again my full interface. So yeah, everything down in the bottom is on my laptop screen, and then the left panel is on my left vertical monitor. But I do so much hotkeys that also like I'm like 80% of everything I do is hotkeys, and 19% of the rest is my interface, my custom UI buttons, and then only 1% I go into menus for stuff. The only trick is when I travel with my laptop, I have to put my ZBrush UI, like all of this, in one monitor, and so it ends up looking like this. But I just hit tab to make most of the UI go away. And so it's not too bad. So then if I need something from my UI, I just hit tab, bring it back up, do what I need to do, then it goes away again. Well, I'll probably get into pressing the rope into the body in the next live stream that I do. Let's see. Actually, I need to look at my calendar really quick and see if I can do one next week at the same time, but I think I won't be able to. Let me check. November. Yeah, keep an eye on the schedule. I might schedule one next week. It might not be the same day and time. If not, then it'll be actually into December before I can stream again because I'm going to be traveling in November. Um, but yeah, it's going to be fun to finish this off and then prep it for 3D printing and get a 3D print out. I actually don't like custom pop-up panels on hotkeys. I ran into some glitches with that in the past. I was trying to do that, and ZBrush kept like forgetting my hotkeys for that, and I just gave up and decided not to do that. All right, well, that's pretty much getting to the end of our time today. Thanks to everybody for joining. It was great chatting with you all. I'll hopefully see you next time. And if I don't see you before Thanksgiving, have a great Thanksgiving if you're in the US of A. Um, but yeah, it's been a pleasure. Uh, Glad everybody got to hang out and watch me work. Have a good one, everybody. See you next time.